Exposed secrets of a sinister babysitter, a spine-chilling haunted home of vengeance awaits. Amy had always thought of Maplewood as a peaceful haven. But in her heart, she knew something simmered beneath its picturesque facade. As she trudged home after another grueling night shift at the diner, the air felt thick, almost electric. Her 2 young children waited with anxious eyes, unaware of the storm brewing around them. Everything changed when she hired Karen. At first, Karen's charm and warmth made Amy feel safe. But week by week, as shadows leaned longer and the golden street lamps flickered to life, something sinister crept in. The neighbors, who once exchanged friendly nods, now whispered in hushed tones, their eyes darting away as she passed. It was chilling, like a spell had been cast over Maplewood, shrouding it in an ominous hush. The first sign of trouble came one evening when she returned to find her daughter's favorite teddy thrown aside, its button eyes staring up at her. Laughing it off, Amy tucked her children into bed, only to hear both wake up screaming from nightmares that made no sense to her. "Mommy, there's a scary lady with eyes like the dark," they cried. Shivers danced along her spine as unease wormed its way into her mind. Days slipped by, and as Amy scrolled through her phone, an article about a long-buried babysitting scandal caught her eye. It described a young woman, eerily similar to Karen, who had been associated with horrendous acts, a specter of a past the town couldn't shake off. The details sent a cold grip around her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can, leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Returning home after her informative detour, Amy was met with an unnerving scene. Karen was seated on the floor, face illuminated by flickering light from the TV, children gathered around her. The room felt cold, the air electric with tension. "Mommy. Karen is telling us about the lady from the stories," her son exclaimed joyfully, but the excitement faded as Amy caught Karen's eye, a fleeting glimpse of darkness lurking behind her smile. That night, as Amy lay in bed, her heart raced. Her mind raced with questions. What were these stories really about? And why did Karen speak of them with such fervor? The walls almost seemed to close in on her, shadows creeping closer, suffocating her sanity. As dread amplified, every creak of the floorboards echoed like death knells. Something was wrong. Was it Karen, or was it the very town she had trusted? The tension peaked when Karen's whispers turned to chanting. "The spirits will rise, seeking their truth," she murmured, eyes glazed over like a puppet dancing to some unholy tune. With every memory of Maplewood's dark past, Amy understood she had to act. She would confront Karen, but deep down, she feared it might be too late. There was a bond between Karen and the horrors of yesteryears, one that threatened to unleash something malevolent. The door creaked, children screamed, and as the air stilled, shadows began to swirl ominously in the corners of her mind. Would Amy uncover the secret buried deep beneath her once serene neighborhood before it was too late? The next morning, light filtered weakly through the curtains, not the bright sunlight Amy hoped to face but a dull gray that clung to the windows like an omen. Her heart still raced from the night before as she padded into the kitchen, hopeful for a cup of coffee to steady her nerves. But when she walked in, a chill washed over her. The joy the children usually brought was absent. They sat at the table, their faces pale, eyes hollow, staring at the missing teddy bear that Karen had discarded. "Where's Mr. Button?" Amy asked, her voice shaky, but the children didn't respond. Their gaze remained fixed as if caught in a trance. A detail clawed at her thoughts. Where would a babysitter hide a beloved toy? But she needed an answer and tried to shake the anxiety threatening to overwhelm her. "Can you please come with me? Let us go find him," she coaxed gently. One child blinked, then slowly nodded. They shuffled behind her like lost souls. Outside, the wind howled, pulling leaves off tree branches, swirling them in a dance that felt eerily alive. Maplewood felt heavy, as if it wanted to swallow her whole. She guided her kids around the house, frantically searching for any clue as to where Karen might have taken the stuffed animal. As they weaved through the yard, Amy's phone chimed. A new article popped up about a recent event at the old Maplewood library, the unexplained loss of a stack of local history books. Ghosts of history, long buried, returned to haunt. In the fine print, it mentioned a notable absence, the name Karen amidst others. A surge of panic shot through her. "Mommy!" her son cried, jerking her from the article. His finger trembled, pointing toward the wooded area that bordered their backyard. The scary lady Amy squinted into the thickening gloom of the woods. "What about her?" "She told us to stay away, but we have to go get Mr. Button." Her daughter chimed in, eyes wide with fear, yet firm with determination. Terrified, Amy felt the ground shifting beneath her. Should she heed their fear or delve into the heart of it? Before she could weigh her options, a sudden rustle in the trees sent her instincts spiraling into high alert. The noise intensified, mingling with whispers that seemed to call her name, echoing as if the wind carried her darkest thoughts. She gripped her children's hands tightly, needing their warmth to stave off the chill creeping through her bones. Then from the shadows of the trees stepped Karen, her smile disingenuous yet eerily calm. "I have something for you," she declared, holding Mr. Button aloft, its button eyes glinting in the darkened light. "We've been having fun without you." Amy's stomach twisted. The laughter that had once felt comforting now danced on the edges of malevolence. She needed the strength to confront this terrifying figure who led her children astray. "Where did you find him?" Amy demanded, keeping her voice steady despite the frantic pounding of her heart. Karen tilted her head slightly, and then her expression shifted, transforming from jovial to something sinister. "Some secrets are meant to be kept. Don't you want to know what truly happened to Maplewood?" A thick hush fell around them, the forest seeming to lean in closer, primal trees wrapping around her fear. "What happened?" Amy rasped, her voice a mere breath above the increasing wind. Karen stepped closer, shadows dancing behind her as she whispered just above a murmur, "It begins with the truth and ends with vengeance." A tightening sensation gripped Amy's throat as realizations crashed into her. Could the town's past and the evil residing in her babysitter intersect? She felt the walls of her world crumbling, her children's terrified faces turning into something dark, their innocent laughter now vibrating with the echoes of a haunting nursery rhyme. Would she dare dive deeper into the dark legacy looming over Maplewood, or would she turn back and risk the wrath of the entity rising with her every step? Amy could feel the sunken weight of dread settled in her chest as she absorbed Karen's words. The shadows around them swayed like dancers in a twisted ballet, adding to the unease that seeped into the air. "What do you mean by vengeance?" she managed to stammer, her voice faltering as fear clawed at her throat. Karen's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed to glisten unnaturally. "You'll see," was all she said, her voice a haunting melody that set shivers racing down Amy's spine. She lifted Mr. Button, as if the very toy held the answers. He's part of it too, a gateway of sorts. Amy felt bile rise in her throat. "You need to give him back." Her voice rose, edged with panic. The children's expressions morphed into confusion, their innocent faces shadowed by worry. They gripped her hands tighter, as if sensing the threat deepening around them. Without warning, Karen's demeanor changed yet again, shifting into something darker. The laughter she once echoed turned feral, a snarling whisper as she stepped closer into the encroaching gloom. "He likes it here. Isn't that right, Mr. Button?" She cradled the bear, almost as if sharing a secret with it. "Mommy." Her daughter whimpered, the sound raw and frightened. "We should go home." Amy felt the urgency pulse through her. They had to retreat before this nightmare consumed them. "No, kids. Stay close," she instructed sharply, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. "We need to get out of here." With shaky steps, she turned to lead them back toward the house, but the thickening fog of the woods seemed to push back against them. The path was distorted, twisting and turning in ways that felt all wrong. With every step, it felt as if the trees themselves were tightening their grip around her, drawing her away from safety. A sudden burst of laughter echoed through the oppressive silence, and Amy froze, the sound like jagged ice slicing through her resolve. It was Karen, mocking, resonating through the very essence of the forest. Run, little mice. Run while you still can. In that moment, a chill streamed through her veins, setting every nerve ablaze. The subtle whispers morphed into a cacophony, chanting her name, echoing through the trees like the haunting reminders of what had once transpired in this cursed place. No! Amy shouted, trying to drown out the voices. She pulled her children along, desperation coursing through her every thought. The familiar backyard felt like a distant dream, now swallowed by sinister shadows. Suddenly, the ground was no longer solid beneath her feet. The earth itself seemed to shift, alive and eager to swallow the trespassers whole. "Mommy, I can't." Her son cried, tripping over a gnarled root. Time slowed as Amy turned, her heart paralyzed by impossible decisions. A faint glow emanated from Mr. Button, drawing her gaze like an anchor in the swirling darkness of their despair. With trepidation, she instinctively reached out, grasping the bear. The moment her fingers brushed against the fabric, an explosion of memories flooded her mind. Dark secrets, lost souls, and the chilling truth of Maplewood threaded through tangled vines of her consciousness. Visions flashed like lightning, revealing the horrors that had laid dormant for generations. "What is happening?" her daughter cried, panic rising. "Let us just go. Now," Amy urged, dragging them back as terror clawed at their heels. But as she turned, Karen stood in their path, a guardian of tangled histories, eyes glimmering with malice, each heartbeat thundering ominously around them. "Do you really want to leave?" Karen taunted, her voice a silken whisper that slithered through the air. "The truth is just beginning." In her heart, Amy realized they were trapped. Eons of vengeance weighed heavily upon her, her instincts screamed at her to fight, to flee, but each choice felt impossibly fraught with danger. A chill swept through, chilling her bones. What sinister truth resided within Mr. Button? Could it be the key to their escape, or was it merely a lure into deeper shadows? With uncertainty lurking like a predator in the periphery, one question burned in her mind: how far down the rabbit hole was she willing to go before it consumed her whole? Would she succumb to the secrets haunting Maplewood, or summon a strength she never knew she had? The air thickened with dread as the haunting laughter filled the woods anew, leaving her wondering what awaited them in the grotesque, tangled waltz of history just beyond the grasp of her sanity. A deep silence draped over the scene as Amy wrestled with the weight of her choices, uncertainty clawing at her state of mind. The overwhelming dread felt like a fog closing in, making it harder to breathe. She glanced over her shoulder towards Karen, whose eyes danced with malicious delight. Mr. Button radiated an eerie glow, pulsating in the thickening gloom like a heartbeat out of sync with the rest of the world. "Mommy, I'm scared." Her daughter sobbed, clutching her leg tightly. Amy took a trembling breath, realizing that they were out of options. "Stay close," she whispered, voice barely a thread above a whisper. They shuffled backward, inching toward the darkness before them while Karen's laughter reverberated throughout the woods, mingling with the eerie whispers that echoed ominously all around. Dread settled in her stomach as she felt more eyes on them, shadows morphing and twisting in the dark. "Do you hear that?" her son whispered, the young boy's wide eyes shimmering with fear. "What?" Amy asked, trying to mask her own rising panic. But even as she spoke, something caught her attention, a low, unnatural growl reverberating from the depths of the trees. It resonated deep, vibrating through her body. Terror constricted her throat as she turned back towards Karen, who suddenly held up Mr. Button high, frozen in time like a grotesque trophy. "You'll regret turning your back on the past. They've been waiting for you to return." Amy's head spun with questions. What did she mean? Who had waited? Before she could process the looming chaos, a quick rustling from the underbrush sent her heart racing, a flash of movement amongst the trees. "Go!" she yelled, adrenaline propelling her forward, darting toward the only semblance of safety, the path that led home, despite its twisting and shifting nature. But the shadows twisted with them, swirling like a raging storm, obscuring their escape. Each step felt like running through molasses, the air thickened around them, a living entity that conspired to hold them back. Panic crawled up Amy's throat as she felt the earth beneath her quake, almost as if the ground resented their intrusion. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw the figures emerging from the fog. Their silhouettes flickered into view, pale and gaunt, eyes hollowed, souls forever trapped in this eerie dimension of vengeance. "Mommy!" Her daughter screamed, pulling at her shirt. "They're coming!" Frozen in disbelief, Amy's gut twisted as she realized that these were the spirits whispered in the bedtime tales she had dismissed. The very souls that had once suffered within the confines of Maplewood, now drawn to the scent of warm, living flesh. "Run!" she shouted as she lunged forward, her heart racing wildly. But as they stumbled, the air crackled around Mr. Button, illuminating the faces of the trapped souls, distorted in a nightmarish array of anguish. A sharp gasp escaped from her lips. She could not look away from the sorrowful, pleading expressions. They weren't just any spirits, they were the children who had gone missing from the woods, each seeking justice for the wrongs they had endured. "Mommy, please!" Her son cried again, tears streaming, panic evident in his voice. "Hold on to my hand. Keep running," she urged, feeling her heart thundering in her chest, a primal rhythm growing louder than the shadows behind them. Just as hope flickered in her chest, a vengeful wail pierced the air, a mix of fury and sorrow that seemed to erupt from the trapped souls. It reverberated through her bones and made her stumble, confusion and terror flooding her senses. Karen's laughter rang out again, a chilling symphony of madness echoing through the trees. "You'll never escape. The past has a way of binding itself to you." Desperation clawed at Amy's mind as they raced toward safety. What had she awakened with her choice? What grotesque fate awaited them if the spirits caught up? With a sudden burst of clarity, she reached for Mr. Button once more. He had to be the key, the answer to this nightmare. But what if he was tied to the very vengeance that sought their end? As she clutched the stuffed bear tightly, a glimmer in her mind sparked. What if embracing the truth was their only chance at breaking this cycle? But was she ready to confront the darkness that awaited, or would it consume them all? The air around them crackled with tension. The shadows inched closer, the haunting laughter grew louder. In that moment, under the oppressive weight of the sinister truth and the chaos closing in, she understood one chilling reality: what had been unleashed was more powerful than any of them could imagine. And she was at its very center. Would she find the strength to confront the forces swirling around them? Or would they all be drawn deeper into the abyss of vengeance? The ground trembled beneath their feet, sending vibrations through Amy's legs that felt like a warning. Each hurried step felt laced with impending doom. The whispers of the spirits filled her ears, weaving through her thoughts like poison. The childlike echoes of laughter turned sinister, shifting into screams of despair. "We have to keep moving," she urged, clutching her son's hand tighter. Her daughter gripped her other leg, terror etched in her small face. It was as if the very woods conspired against them, branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, snagging their clothes, tugging at Amy's resolve. Behind them, shadows darted, swirling into shapes that no longer looked human. Dark forms twisted and elongated, flickering like flames, howling with rage as they advanced. Amy's heart raced, the pulse pounding in her ears like war drums. Run! Now! The path ahead twisted cruelly, leading them deeper into the belly of the woods. Each turn felt like an entrapment rather than an escape. Awareness of the hollowed eyes bearing down upon them sent shivers crawling up her spine. "Mommy, the light!" her daughter shrieked, pointing ahead. A faint glow shimmered in the distance, warm and inviting against the consuming dark. Hope blossomed in Amy's chest, quickening her pace toward the light, even though dread lingered just behind her. What if it was another trap? What if the spirits toyed with them, leading them into a snare? The sounds around them heightened, a cacophony of rage and sorrow. The spirits were close, so very close. "Don't look back!" Amy screamed, willing them forward, the voice filled with fear and determination. But curiosity tugged at her. A fleeting glance back at the chaos erupting seemed inevitable. A wave of icy terror washed over her as she beheld their faces, twisted forms of familiar children held by the remnants of sorrow. Their mouths contorted into cries that echoed painfully in her soul. "Mommy! They want you!" Her son cried, eyes wide with fright. He pulled at her hand, urging her to continue. "I know," she shouted, forcing herself to look away, the glow becoming tangible now, shimmering like a beacon of safety ahead. Yet, the sound of their cries burnt into her memory, a haunting reminder that she could not simply run from the past. As they stumbled closer to the light, the ground seemed to pull, a gnarled root wrapping around her ankle unexpectedly. She stumbled, falling to the earth as her children screamed. Panic pierced through her, driving her heart to a frenzy as she tried to free herself. "Hold on!" she yelled. They were just beyond her reach, her daughter about to fall into the dark grasp of the shadows. "Mommy!" Her daughter's scream echoed, breaking Amy's heart. Instinctively, she grasped for Mr. Button, the bear now radiating an unfamiliar warmth against her palm, a lifeline, a tether to the truth. With one strong tug, she pulled herself free. The light was now just a breath away, but something was changing within the glow. The warmth shifted, a pulse that felt alive and ominous. Shadows coalesced around it, forming dark tendrils that crept outward, ready to snatch them back. "Move!" Amy shouted as they raced forward, the light morphing, flickering like a candle in a storm. Though fear clawed at her throat, she had no choice but to jump toward it. As they leapt into the glow, the shadows swirled violently, and suddenly, the world around them erupted. Dark figures surged forward, the night filled with anguished shrieks. The very air crackled with power. In the blinding light, Amy felt an undeniable truth surge through her thoughts. There was an answer, something waiting to be uncovered. A revelation that could shatter the chains binding them to the past. But before she could grasp it fully, the darkness consumed her sight. One chilling thought echoed in her mind as the shadows swept over them: what lay beyond the light? As the noise of anguish faded and darkness enveloped them, Amy's heart stopped. The spirit world had something in store for her, and whatever it was, would change everything. Could the truth set them free, or would it seal their fate forever? The darkness pulled at them, thick and suffocating, like a fog that swallowed all hope. Amy felt her heart drum in terror, its frantic beat echoing in her ears. The grip of her children's hands was cold, uncertain, as they hung onto her in the void. Then the light surged back. But it wasn't as she remembered. It flickered, an unstable glow that pulsated rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Shadows danced at its edges, clawing at the warm embrace of luminosity. The forms that poured forth from the darkness twisted, morphing, their features both familiar and unrecognizable. They drifted closer, drawn by an unseen force, their whispers merging with the crackles of light in an uncanny symphony of chaos. "Mommy?" The small voice of her son trembled, quaking with the uncertainty of a child forced to confront a nightmare. "Shoo, it's okay," she whispered back, her voice barely a breath. With every fiber of her being, she wanted to protect them, to shield them from the encroaching shadows. "Just stay close." But the shadows had a lingering pull, beckoning her to delve deeper into their chilling embrace. Tendrils reached out, brushing against her skin like ice, igniting a chilling dread coursing through her veins. They whispered promises entwined with dark memories, echoes of laughter turned bitter, calling out to her as if they were old friends. "Mommy, don't listen." Her daughter's voice broke through the spell. "They're lying." The moment snapped back to reality. Amy's heart raced anew. "We have to move, right now." She took a step forward, pulling her children along, her feet seemingly dragged down by an unseen force. They stumbled forward, slipping into the light, but it felt like walking through molasses. They were caught in a web of memories, memories of laughter, joy, and then the painful twist of loss. The glow ahead began to reveal shapes in overwhelming contrast to the shadows. It was a pathway, eerily familiar. "Mommy! It's our old house." Her son shouted, pulling away slightly, as the brightness beckoned them closer. "No. Remember what happened?" Panic rose in Amy's chest. The house loomed larger, the light showcasing its chipped paint and broken windows that seemed to ripple like water. The memories swept through her as a flood, children playing, laughter ringing, but then the echo of a scream, sharp and sudden, stealing away her breath. What if we don't go back? Her daughter asked, wide-eyed with a mixture of terror and hope. The shadows behind them screeched, a nightmarish chorus that rose in intensity. Their cries became guttural, overlapping into a maddening blend of anguish and longing. It paralyzed Amy, the visceral fear choking her throat. It's a trap, she shouted. But we can't stay here. Gathering every ounce of courage, Amy led her children toward the light, her heart pounding with resolve. Every step she took chipped away at the insidious doubt that had burrowed itself deep in her mind. As they moved, the shadows coiled tighter, now whispering warnings, promising to take what belonged to them if she dared cross that threshold once more. Just a few more steps, almost there. The light surged, igniting a warmth that felt so foreign amidst the sour stench of despair. As she reached for the doorway of the past, the air thickened, charged with a foul energy, and she felt its grasp close in around them. But then, an avalanche of screams erupted, the kind that could shatter souls. She froze, and for one terrifying moment, the colorful visions of their past collided with the bitter reality of their present. As tears streamed down her face, she screamed in defiance, "Not again." All at once, the world shifted. The light expanded, closing in, and with it came an incredibly powerful wave of energy that knocked them backward, crashing against a wall of the unseen. Panic gripped her heart. The whispers transformed into a singular, chilling voice that echoed in Amy's mind. Do you seek the truth? Step through if you dare, and suddenly, the choice loomed before her. Stand strong and face the horrors of the past, or embrace oblivion. What would they uncover if they pushed forward? Would hope lead to their salvation, or to a nightmare they could never escape? The ground heaved beneath them, the light fracturing as it clashed with the shadows. Amy's heart pounded, a wild rhythm that barely kept up with her racing thoughts. The air was thick with dread, and the smell of something rotten slithered into her lungs. It was becoming harder to breathe, and her children's faces turned panicked, their eyes wide with a fear that felt all too familiar. Mommy! Her daughter cried, her small hand clutching Amy's tightly. I don't want to go back there. Neither do I, Amy whispered, forcing her feet to move, to break free from the vice of the past. But with every step she took, the shadows pulled her back, clawing at her like vicious animals refusing to let go of their prey. The voice lingered in the air, haunting and beckoning. Truth if you dare, it reverberated within her, sinking its icy tentacles deep into her mind. Mommy, please. Her son's voice trembled, tugging at her heart. He was so small, so innocent. They were caught in a swirling maelstrom of memories, her childhood home, a place where laughter once rang, now distorted into something grotesque. She could almost see the silhouettes of people dancing through the memory, faces shifting like the shadows around them. What if we never leave? What if we're stuck forever? Her daughter whispered, every syllable heavy with despair. The shadows writhed impatiently, their whispers growing louder, insistent, accusing. Come, join us. You belong with us. Amy stumbled, heartbeat thundering as she fought back tears. Each whisper was a knife, slicing through the veil of her sanity. Focus. We need to focus. She urged herself, gripping her children's hands until her knuckles turned white. Then the darkness unleashed a deafening roar, a cacophony of sorrow so profound it almost felt sentient. It thundered through her body, vibrating in her bones, bringing clarity to the chaos. These shadows weren't just figments of her imagination, they were the echoes of lost souls, trapped here just as she was. And perhaps, they wanted her to join them. Suddenly, a glimmer shimmered through the chaos, something she had almost missed, a doorway. It hung there, slightly ajar, pulsing with that unstable light. Her instincts screamed at her to turn away, but the luring beam of light began to soften the shadow's grip, at least momentarily. Mommy, we can't go in there. Her son cried, eyes wide and terrified. I know. The corner of her mind clawed at a memory of warmth, of safety that felt miles away. But we need to live. We can't let this place claim us. With renewed strength, she propelled her family toward the flicker of light, ignoring the screams that erupted from the shadows behind them. They hurled insults, memories, and threats like an angry ocean crashing against rocks. But they wouldn't stop her. Not again. As they neared the doorway, the whispers transformed into anguish. You will forget what you were. You will be one of us. No. I'm not afraid of you. She shouted, voice breaking with the weight of her conviction. The light grew brighter, illuminating the faceless night all around them, blinding her momentarily. The warmth ignited a flicker of hope deep within, urging her forward. Just as they reached the threshold, the shadows lunged, thousands of tendrils snaking through the air like dark serpents seeking a fresh kill. Amy felt her children tugging against her, fear coursing through them like wildfire. She pushed through the doorway, heart racing as she thought of what lay ahead, a faint promise of salvation or the binds of eternal torment. Hold on, kids. She shouted as she felt the darkness clawing at her back, pulling her like a spell. As they crossed the threshold, silence enveloped them, thick and sharp. Behind them, the doorway slammed shut, sealing away the shadows and their sinister promises. But before she could breathe, a figure loomed in the dark before them, hazy yet chillingly familiar, a figure from the house they thought they had left behind. Welcome back, the echoing voice coiled around them, cloaked in venomous familiarity. Amy's breath caught in her throat, dread creeping back in uninvited. What had they awakened? The truth was waiting, lurking within. And the journey had just begun. The air crackled with tension as the figure stepped closer, the outline becoming sharper against the pale glow. Amy's heart raced. A familiar face contorted with a cruel expression emerged from the shadows. It was her sister, Claire, the sister who had vanished, leaving Amy alone to fend for their family. Claire, Amy whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. I've missed you, the figure crooned, her voice a dripping honey, sickly sweet. But there was no warmth, only a chilling echo of something darker. The kids clutched tighter to Amy's sides, their small bodies trembling. Mommy, her daughter whimpered. Stay close, Amy urged, stepping forward, adrenaline sharpening her focus. You're not real. You can't hurt us. Oh, but I can. Claire's laughter twisted through the space, a high-pitched, mirthless tone that sent shivers racing down Amy's spine. You brought your children to the darkness, dear sister. You must face the consequences. The shadows stirred around them, a seething mass eager to latch onto their hearts, pull them into the abyss. Amy could feel something clawing at her spirit, straining against the seams of her sanity. No. We're here to break free. Claire stepped further into the light, her form both alluring and grotesque. Break free? You don't understand. She spread her arms wide, and the shadows writhed in acknowledgement. You brought them here. They will pay. The words were like daggers, piercing deep into Amy's heart. Memories flickered behind her eyes, Claire's laughter, their childhood plagued by shadows, the sinister history that tainted their family. The truths Amy had buried long ago were resurfacing, each revelation more horrifying than the last. We didn't want this. Amy shouted. You're not in control anymore. Claire's smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp and too many, an echo of something monstrous. Who said I'm in control, dear sister? I'm just a messenger. The darkness is hungry. And you fed it. Suddenly, the walls around them shimmered, transforming into flashes of their memories. The basement where they once played games, now tainted with cries of despair, shadows dancing on the ceiling, eyes watching every move. Mommy. Her son cried, eyes darting. He could see them, feel the weight of the past pressing in. Unfazed, Claire continued, her voice honeyed yet filled with malice. You thought you could escape. This house remembers. It remembers your regrets, your fears. Shut up. Amy screamed, but the words fell flat against the storm brewing around them. The air thickened until it felt like she was suffocating. A low growl echoed from the corners, shadows twisting into grotesque forms, contorted and reaching to claw at their skin. Get out. We have to get out now. Amy tugged her children's hands, adrenaline fueling her determination. The only way out is through. Claire hissed, her image shifting between the familiar sister and the nightmare she had become. Panic surged through Amy. What do you want from us? Truth if you dare. Claire's laughter brimmed with insanity, as if she found delight in their terror. They had crossed the threshold, but this was only the beginning. The darkness stirred, eager for fresh souls, hungry for the guilt they carried. Amy's heart thundered in her chest. They were trapped in a web spun from the very sins she thought she had escaped. Kids, we need to find another way. She shouted desperately, eyes darting around for a clue, some glimmer of hope amid the black. But even the small spark of determination began to wane, suffocated by the darkness. Then, as her resolve faltered, a soft, flickering light caught her attention in the next room, mysterious and inviting. It shimmered like a promise among the choking shadows, calling them closer. Stay close. Amy yelled again, pulling her children toward the light, but the shadows hissed, angry now. What awaited them in that glow? Would it be the salvation they craved or something far worse? As they moved closer to the light, the ground beneath began to tremble once more, the very walls seeming to come alive with shadows reaching out to drag them down into the depths of despair. The truth was waiting just ahead, and as the shadows unleashed a deafening wail, one question loomed in the air like the scent of decay: how much were they willing to sacrifice to uncover it? The flickering light pulsed, drawing Amy in like a moth to a flame. Her instincts screamed to stay away, yet that haunting glow offered a sliver of hope, a chance to escape this nightmare. She turned to her children, their faces pale, caught between terror and the promise of safety. Hold my hand tight, she whispered, her own fear slicing through her resolve. They nodded, faithful and trusting. Together, they moved toward the light, each step feeling like a betrayal to the shadows clawing at their heels. As they approached, the soft glow turned blinding, washing over them like the warmth of a long-lost sun. Yet it had an unsettling hue, like the ghost of happiness trying to mask the impending doom. When they stepped into the room, they found it empty save for a single heavy old mirror hanging on the wall. It was immense, its edges fraying into darkness, with an antique elegance that repelled Amy. The children gazed at their reflections, but the figures staring back were not their own. Smudged faces seemed to reach out, mouths moving in silent screams. Look! Her daughter pointed, eyes wide with horror. Amy's heart raced as she followed the little finger. The faces moved, coalescing into images, blurred memories of laughter twisted into the echoes of their family's past, and all the laughter turned to sorrow. Not another step, Claire's voice seeped from the shadows, poisonous and slick. Do you see what you've fostered here? This is your legacy. Get out. Amy screamed, the weight of Claire's words hanging heavy in the air. But Claire only laughed, and the mirror shimmered, rippling like disturbed water. The faces called to her, a twisted chorus of her family's laughter mixed with cries for help, drawing her toward the glass. Mommy, we can't look. Her son tugged at her, panic lacing his voice. It's scary. The faces grew clearer, morphing into memories: her mother's anguished stare, her father's deep frown of disappointment, and Claire's last, terrified expression. Each image forced Amy to confront the burdens she carried too long, weighed down by ghosts that fed off her guilt. No! She shouted, stepping back. The chill of the room intensified, ice invading her veins. She turned to her children, determination lacing her words. We can't stay here. This isn't real. The shadows swelled, eager to pull them back into the depths where regret thrived. The murmurs grew louder, echoing her fears, each voice hammering against her skull. You made this happen, Amy. You left us. A scream erupted from her daughter as a shadow lunged, seeking to grasp them. It couldn't take them. They were real. They were alive. Run! She cried, yanking the kids toward the exit, but the shimmer of the mirror reached out, a desperate grasp for her essence. With every step, the room contracted, walls closing in like the jaws of a beast. But the fiery glow came alive with new urgency, pulsing and beckoning. Amy hurled herself toward the door, desperately shoving it open as Claire's voice morphed into a wail, furious and anguished. You can't escape what's inside you. They stumbled into the next room, breathless, hearts racing. But just as they thought they'd outrun Claire's torment, the walls began to shudder violently, flickering images of their fears surfacing again. Before them loomed another door, pulsating with that same glow, beckoning them onward. But with their backs against the rising threats behind them, Amy understood this could lead to salvation or deeper peril. Kids, stay close. No matter what happens, we don't accept this darkness. She forced each breath into resolve as the ground beneath them erupted with shadows clawing hungrily at their heels. The door swung open, a yawning abyss of light waiting. You don't have to go through, Claire's voice echoed ominously. Stay with us. It was now or never. Were they strong enough to tear through the darkness, or would they succumb to the very echoes of despair they tried to escape? With one final push, Amy gripped her children's hands tighter and leapt through the door, uncertainty swirling around them. Like a vortex. The light consumed them. What awaited on the other side? Would they find the truth or be devoured by the anger they left behind? The choice lay ahead, but the darkness would never let them go without a fight. What would they face when faced with the deepest shadows of their own souls? The blinding light enveloped them, pushing back the shadows that had clung mercilessly to their heels. For a breathless moment, Amy felt weightless, as if she were suspended between worlds. She could sense her children beside her, their small hands gripping hers tightly, anchored together in this surreal limbo. The pulse of light wrapped around them, washing over their fear and sorrow, igniting a flicker of hope in Amy's heart. But as swiftly as it came, the light fractured again, scattering like shards of glass, revealing a familiar place, their old home. Yet everything was different. The living room was bathed in an eerie glow, furniture draped in cobwebs, and the air thick with a sense of loss. Images of the past flickered through the cracks, a collage of family gatherings turned strange, faces smiling back but tinted with the shadows of what once was. Mommy? Her daughter's voice cracked, uncertainty lacing her words as they stepped cautiously inside, the atmosphere heavy with a familiarity that felt menacing. Amy tightened her grip on their hands. Stay together, hold on tight. She felt the familiar weight of dread settle in her stomach, the memories swirling like dark clouds, threatening to engulf them. Suddenly, Claire appeared, stepping from the shadows between the grainy walls. Welcome home, she cooed, her smile unsettling as ever. The shadows danced behind her, waiting, hungry. Claire, we're not here for anything you have to offer, Amy replied, her voice fierce despite the trepidation tightening her chest. We're here to save our family, not to bury ourselves in the past. Oh dear sister, Claire chuckled, a sound that clawed at the walls of sanity. But that's just the point. You are the past. This family buried itself deep in regret. You can't escape. A chorus of disembodied whispers began to weave through the air, rising like a dark tide, voices of despair and anger echoing the unacknowledged truths that Amy had tried to forget. They described painful memories, the laughter, the storms of childhood, the lost ones hidden beneath layers of fear and guilt. Enough! Amy shouted, forcing herself to step forward despite the suffocating weight of nostalgia pushing back. She felt her children seeking refuge behind her, and it cemented her resolve. You are not our past anymore, Claire. You don't hold the keys to our future. Suddenly, the shadows shrieked, a cacophony rising like a tidal wave of sound. You can't silence the truth. They surged forward, threatening to plunge back into the darkness of denial. Run! Amy urged, her voice fierce and unwavering. She began to pull her children toward the old stairway, the surface trembling beneath them. They could feel the darkness clawing, grasping at their heels like desperate hands reaching for lost souls. Go! Now! She yelled, and they surged forward, pounding up the stairs, the smell of dust and decay clawing at their throats. Each step seemed to echo their fears. What were they really running from? Would they ever truly escape? Mommy, what if she catches us? Her son cried, fear etched across his face. Keep going. We can't stop now. She pushed through the urge to look back, knowing that stopping could mean they'd drown in the past she had fought so hard to leave behind. Finally, they reached the second floor, the light growing increasingly ethereal. In here! Amy shouted, bursting into a bedroom that looked strangely untouched, filled with memories of joy mingled with the heavy echoes of sorrow. The walls pulsed with a gentle light that felt comforting amidst chaos. Its warmth filled her chest. This is where we can rewrite our story, Amy realized. What do we do? Her daughter asked, wide-eyed, standing at the threshold of potential. Face it. Amy took a deep breath, focusing on the mirror framed elegantly in the corner that seemed to draw her closer. We need to remember, to acknowledge the pain, not run from it. Only then do we conquer it. They gathered around the mirror, its surface shimmering with specters of their past, the divided family, the laughter, tears, and ultimately, the shadows of loss and regret. We accept you, she declared, voice steady as she spoke to the reflections. We were scared, but fear cannot bind us. With a shared look, the children stepped forward. We were scared too, her son murmured, tears forming in his eyes. But we want to be brave. Yes. We need to be brave. Her daughter echoed, squeezing her brother's hand tightly. The mirror responded, lights swirling around them, illuminating the shadows that had haunted their family. Let the past be known, Amy urged, focusing on every painful moment. Let the screams be heard and the tears flow, but we will no longer be prisoners. The air thickened, then exploded, a resonating chorus of cathartic release gusted through the room, unraveling emotions they had hidden too long. The shadows hissed, raucous and furious, as if they resisted the revelation that rolled like waves from their hearts, washing over every memory frozen in time. You should be one of us. They howled, grasping for what they could not control. But with each cry, light erupted brighter, swallowing the darkness as laughter and warmth returned, gracing the air with promises of healing. We are not your past. Amy cried, arms around her children as they faced the storm together. Suddenly, all envying shadows burst forth, torn asunder by the echo of their truths. The whispers, the fear, everything tried to pull them under but succumbed to the brightness of hope forged back into blazing flame. In one poignant moment, everything shifted. The room transformed, shadows evaporating as light flooded in, and the darkness withdrew, hissing like a wounded animal. The mirror cracked, splintering until it shattered into glittering motes, dissolving into nothing. Breathless, Amy held her children tight as a wave of calm settled upon them. The remnants of fear dissipated, replaced with clarity and peace. Maplewood was no longer a prison of past sins, but a journey towards a better future, committed to remembrance and understanding. The warmth enveloped them, pulling them toward the doorway, a gateway to a new beginning. With one final look behind to the remnants of their childhood home, Amy whispered through tears, "We're free now." Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the light, leaving behind the shadows of what had been, stepping forward into a world of endless potential where love, not fear, would guide them. And so, the tension of the past unraveled, revealing a future where they were no longer defined by their history but by the strength they found in themselves. Maplewood breathed anew, a place of healing and hope, forever entwined with their souls. But as they walked into the bright embrace of the new dawn, one thing resonated in Amy's heart: she would always carry the echoes of the past, not as a burden, but as a testament of survival. She had faced the shadows, won against the darkness. "Mommy?" Her daughter's small voice brought her back to the present, eyes shining with wonder. "Are we really okay?" "Yes," Amy replied softly, warmth flooding her. "We're okay. Together." In that moment, wrapped in their love, they stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Now, before you go, if you want to experience more heart-pounding tales like this one, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that await. Smash that like button hard to feed the algorithm and keep the stories coming. We can't wait to hear your thoughts, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need a thrill. Show your support. Only true fans understand that actions like these keep the adventure alive.